Hi, and good morning or evening, depending on where you are in the world. As I mentioned briefly in the chat, um, had a problem with the internet and also the microphone. So let me know if is the sound level okay? Should I raise the volume on the microphone so it doesn't clip? Because this is my normal speaking level, or a bit louder than usual. Good morning, Kiss of Death, Tom and Eredy. Good to hear that. Thanks. Sorry if I'm a bit down in energy or have a strange energy. Was only able to sleep about 2 hours. And I got 13 hours of work ahead of me, so that's why I'm already in working clothes to at least save some time. And as for vocals on the last Life Level album, maybe a third of the songs. I was supposed to do a bit more, but we also have several members, and of course the main composer, my friend Jonas, who did a lot of the vocals. Like any of the more growls or simply something that doesn't sound like my vocal. And then there is some of the other members doing like spoken word. I woke up at 3 in the morning here. Good evening and also good morning. Yeah, that's why they sound different. We are, after all, like 5 members. Or were, well, 4 of us doing different vocals, and then there is another guest vocalist from one of our friends' bands too, called Reactor 4. I've reached out to him to do videos in Strömstad where we recorded a lot of Concussion, also Decadence, but he haven't replied yet, so maybe I'll just take a walk around some of the areas of Strömstad where me and Jonas used to go, and some places that were important for Life Lover. Yeah, coffee should help. I made about 6 cups this morning, so we'll see. So I might not be as entertaining today, but at least I'll be caffeinated. As for joining me with coffee, that sounds like you already did. But that just means that I'm 3 cups behind, so I'll keep working on it. Yeah, that's one of the Muse Peace was one of the songs out of Decadence made in Strömstad. And I wanted that to be the title of the EP, but they didn't think it was serious enough, so we went something a bit more dark instead. And I'm going to tell the story about that recording when I'm up in that city. That feels most appropriate, as it's been over a decade, so it feels like a few months more won't make a difference to me. Shouldn't to anyone else either. As for influences in music, it's hard to say. I wouldn't consider anything being possible without nature. In the past 2 or 3 months, beyond showing my friend Johan some things I used to listen to 15 and 20 years ago, I haven't listened to any other music. I'm busy with composing and recording my own. I don't really consider anything else any priority. I felt for a bit difference from the regular coffee at work, so I added some cardamom to this, but I added too little. I can smell it but not taste it. But for those of you who may like cardamom, it's a recommendation in case you haven't done it before. And as the title of this stream refers to, it's just what it sounds like. It's morning coffee. As for the song itself, well, it's by one of the other members, so I can't really tell about that except what I know about that person and so on. And to Andalus, I I've tried to like look at and listen to some things about music theory, but it doesn't really say anything to me. It doesn't. I can't really recall anything of it. It's just like a foreign language to me, except worse, because it doesn't translate to my approach in composing. Because for me, everything is by ear. Uh, when I hear atmosphere or mood or a melody, I usually know from memory how to recreate that on a different instrument. And then I can just try to come as close as possible to what I hear in my head on an instrument that I'm using, which is usually guitar or piano. As for if I'm getting used to streaming, yes and no. There is always something going wrong with some equipment, but yeah, for example, this one took a few minutes extra to set up, but generally it feels like at least getting used to the flow and answering questions is something I'm trying to get more used to. Then again, it's I'm more of an introspective introverted person, so for me, any activity that relies on being extroverted feels a bit unnatural to me, even though I have a lot of practice in it. So to me, it feels like I'm out of my element. Well, hopefully for some of you, that feeling is not as strong. But I can only practice and try to get it. As for the internet, I can't really do much about that. This is an old house, and this restaurant doesn't really need the highest speed for uploads or downloads. Uh, so I think this is what they use for the people that book conferences here, and that's been working. So that's what I got to work with, but it's better than what I have at my place, because there I wouldn't even be able to do anything. And yeah, I agree with that it's important to show the real power of nature and how it can transform everything that is in it. Yeah, I did do the vocals for Muse piece on Decadence, but I didn't write the lyrics and I didn't write the music. That's one of the things about being in a band, that there's other people interacting with you. So yeah, I wouldn't do any vocals on something that I don't understand the thought behind, but I can't speak to the real meaning behind it. And no, none of us has never been a part of that project. I will never say that name because they don't deserve to be mentioned. They should just be forgotten. People are just bad at forgetting. We met several of them in person at events that I have hosted. But that's all. Thanks. Yeah, it's true. It's a bit easier to tune into the like stream of consciousness aspect instead of just becoming completely silent. But I know that I need a lot more practice with that. But that's all that any of us really can do. We can just find what we like or want to be good at and then practice and try to improve. I still try to become better at making coffee, but I don't really notice a difference. And as for feeling a connection to lyrics, even though I haven't written them, yeah, I tend to know the people I work with pretty well. And during those days, I spent a lot of time with our current drummer Dan, and many times after rehearsals, I would stay at his place and make us dinners after rehearsals. So there is definitely always a connection in anything that I do. That's one of the most important parts of any art or composing aspect, I think, or especially recording. And thanks, Maya. That's nice to hear. I'm glad that it has a purpose. And to Elima, or Elimar, doesn't really matter, I hope. I know of that project, but I've never listened to it. As for many other things, I'm aware of plenty of things. To me, it's just, I don't expect anyone really to see something as I do or have done as a priority, because that's often not my experience. So I've always had the perspective and philosophy that anything that doesn't aid hypothermia is less of a priority. So anyone and anything else is lower on that list. And the further away you are from me, especially if you're not related to my projects, I'm not going to give it any attention unless you're directly presenting it to me in front of me in person. Unless I know you personally and well for over many years and have met you several times, then I might keep updated on what you're doing in your projects. But that's very few artists that I do that for. And thank you, CM. That's very nice to hear, and I appreciate that a lot. Starting to feel like it could be a good day. It's very good weather, so it should be a lot of people, which usually doesn't mean a good day for me, but at this place it does, since it means having something to do and not becoming unemployed. And yeah, of course, I wouldn't mind collaborating or performing with other artists. That's the kind of people that I usually end up doing tours with and so on. I need to open the window because it's a bit warm in here. It's starting to get above 20 degrees around here, so to me that is warm. So maybe, yeah, as expected, here's the birds. And yeah, I understand that. I'm also aware that my approach is not for everyone. That's kind of the point. And I don't mind making things a bit harder than it needs to be, because that's what I've been doing all my life, and it's what I'm used to. And I wouldn't say that it works the best for my personal life, but it is what makes my songs worthwhile for me, or it makes the time between the songs rather worthwhile. I can stand the time that I'm not making music by making it the way that I am. Yeah, hopefully when it comes to Wrongest Född, there is a recording of it from 2005 that's going to be on a compilation that's been in the works for the last 3 years that hopefully should be out soon. Yeah, it's the same here in Sweden as in Germany. It's very humid lately. Because it used to rain a lot and then it transferred to just a lot of sun, but it's still a bit humid in there. It feels a bit strange, but it's nothing new. And I think I missed a question a bit earlier, so I'll see. As for consider suicide and not melancholy, there is more material in progress, as always. Some days it's just a bit hard to integrate the creative aspects of life with work. I'm used to either just doing music and art or just working. And when I work, I usually work long days, so I feel a bit shut down when I'm off work in the evening. I often use 2-3 hours of that time after work for meditation and trying to regain some perspective and keep myself together, and also preparing mentally in my head, making notes and writing down lists for future videos that I'm working on. Hi. And I'm never sure about what name or number there is of consoles. Like, there's too many generations to keep track of. But yeah, I have a PlayStation 2 laying around at home from the times that the older Final Fantasy games were out. That's almost the only thing that I played on them. Or it, rather. As with many other things, if I don't have the time to immerse myself in it days at a time, it just gets pushed aside and I save it for some other time. And yeah, most of, or well, the younger co-workers have no idea who or what I am because they are young. Like some of the people in the cafeteria, they work here just for the summer because this is a seasonal restaurant. So they are younger than several of my bands. while of course my boss knows that I do some things that are a bit different, and he has heard some of my albums too. I gave him a copy of Alta Italiana and Not Melancholy when I started here 3 years ago. So I know that he has heard those because he has made me some good, thoughtful comments about some of the songs. And a good evening to those of you in California. I usually drink coffee regardless of what time it is in the day, simply because it's a tasty drink. And I've never really experienced any difference about amounts of caffeine. Like, it doesn't affect if I can sleep or not. Because I know that because I've had months without it in the I still have a problem sleeping. As for booking shows, concerts, ceremonies, and so on, that's something that is, of course, a bit on hold at the moment because of the state of the world. But there are some people that I'm in contact with and that has also contacted me over the past years and months that want to set a couple of things up. So I will see where in the US I can be in the future, since in general it's a bit harder to get there, and since I have members from different countries, that doesn't really help when it comes to if you're doing it off the books or if you're trying to do it legitimately, well, whatever, it's in the morning. As for what I can say about the latest Cal album, I wanted to wait until the next time I'm in Stockholm so I can make interviews with the members of Cal and talk about it properly with them, since they are a very big and important part of it, because they make all of the music. And one of my friends that plays the guitar wrote some of the lyrics for the first time too. I think it would be nice for him and me to do a video together. And last time we were busy taking care of his family between the rehearsals and recordings we did. So I'll see when that happens. I'm still waiting for an update from them, but they are more busy than me, and that says something, I guess. And thank you very much, Lari, for the donation. It's very appreciated. Cheers. I'm not sure to call this good morning or good evening or late night. Uh, and yeah, it's complicated to get to any state in the States, but I think it will be worth the wait. And so far, even though I've passed through the country a couple of times in the past, yeah, things have kept getting postponed over the years, and I'm 20 years in, so 1 year more or two shouldn't make a big difference, I hope. And yeah, to Steph, that's the translation or meaning behind its title. And I made a video about the album and some of the additional meanings behind the concept. As for how it works for performing a show, it depends if you are the organizer or if someone else is. Also, if they're a good organizer or a shitty one, because if it's a shitty one, you will have to pay your own travels and bring your own equipment, and hopefully there is a bigger band that you can be the support act for. So there is more people than your friends in the audience. And if you don't have any friends, that's fine too. Just contact local or nearby organizers, clubs, and bars and things like that put together concerts or smaller shows, and see what you can do to be a part of any lineup that they are working on, and of course create something that is interesting and worthwhile. Otherwise, they're going to ignore you, unfortunately. And that's coming from a place of experience because I'm getting ignored frequently. There's plenty of organizers that doesn't want to have anything to do with me because I don't do a commercial product. I'm doing something that I believe in, that is made for the sake of a higher purpose rather than just shallow entertainment. On the other hand, if you really want to perform and don't have a place to prove yourself in other ways like recordings and having a band or something else, it's hard, but it's possible. And that's simply if you want to organize your own event or concert, you contact different places in your area and find out what it costs to rent the place and what the requirements are for you to organize a concert there. It's all pretty basic. And if you don't have the equipment, you need to find out if either the venue is able to rent it out for you and what it costs for you. And also if that requires to rent a sound engineer, or if you need to bring your own, or if you're one. So if you were one, you would know these things. Like, you can probably find out most of these things online if you search about it. I didn't need to search about most of these things. It's just things that I know based on my own experiences, that I know what to do when it comes to making an event. But I guess I could make a video about it in case you prefer me talking about it than another stranger. It would feel a bit strange to make a video like that, but I'm not against it. As for anything that I do, now it's not popular in my country, and most people have no idea who or what I am, and that's fine by me. I can't really assume or expect that anyone would appreciate anything that I do. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I can only do do my best to improve, and hopefully that helps someone along the line. And yeah, it's worth mentioning again, as I mentioned it in the previous stream. I recorded several albums and EPs with Hypothermia about 3 years ago, and one of them has been ready for a release for 2 years, but I'm fighting with the label about it because I don't want them to rip me off like they did last time. And I'd rather have a fight with them and delay a release another year than agreeing to conditions that are simply below me or any other band that has been active for as long as I've been. Because I think it's a very important album, especially is for me. So I want them to treat it with the respect and attention that it deserves and not just throw it out there. So that's why the next Hypothermia album and releases are delayed, because I want to make sure that it gets the treatment and attention that it deserves. Greetings back to Russia. I had to have some water behind or between the cups of coffee because it's warm here and coffee isn't helping. Feeling that I'm getting a bit dehydrated. Yeah, the birds here are nice. There's plenty of them up on this mountain. I wanted to go to the conservatory last night, but there is too much, as it was a Friday. A lot of youth were out making noise, so it wouldn't have been a nice background. As for that approach of making music, then it means that you need a PA system, and most venues and bars have that. So then you just need to find a way or what their conditions are for renting it, and or if, as I mentioned before, if there are other bands that would like you to be their opener, you just need to make your beats and instrumentals as backtracks that you can play on the PA, and then there's no difference from adding vocals to a song at home than doing it live, really. And if I would want to be appreciated in my country, to some extent would be nice or useful, I think, because a lot of my music is inspired by not just the nature, but also local areas that have a lot of history. And I think if people care about the countryside, they should find some interest in what I do. But of course, I'm more known in other countries and also sub-communities of the metal community than in the regular world, of course. So it's not really a market, especially not here. Because not selling my soul or whoring myself out like many bigger artists do. The magazines don't want to talk to me either because they want something that can sell, and someone that wants to sell themselves, that's just not for me. As for what life level would have been if it continued, our plan was to do an album that mixed the approach and atmosphere of Konkurs with the production of Sjukdom, so a combination of those two, but more like a continuation of Konkurs, which would have been pretty interesting. But unfortunately, it won't happen. Yeah, it's been 2 months since it kept snowing here. It's been raining instead too. Except the past week, it's been sun instead. And as to Eduardas, I always think coffee is better. I don't mind tea, but it's just not the same for me. To me, it's uninteresting. And it's my fourth cup, I think, though it's been away for a little bit. Thanks, Elvia. That's sounds like a good trip. Oh, it's interesting that something I made 16 years ago still affects people. But I appreciate it. Yeah, the view from here is pretty spectacular. Like anything viewed from that video is just outside of the window here. Like the forests and the lakes. And I never get used to how early it gets bright outside. I'm always used to me it feels more natural to be used to the winter times that has barely any light, so I always get surprised each year when the light returns. It feels odd to me with this much light. Thanks. I've had some of the parts of that album in my head lately. I'm trying to relearn it on guitar, but I haven't had the time to practice really. And I made myself a big disservice by recording it in a tuning that is between two different keys or tunings. So it's very hard to get that sound on a guitar without it sounding out of tune. So anything that I play sounds familiar or similar, but it's just not right. So I'm still struggling before I can make a proper video where I'm performing it again. And when it comes to playing something here, currently I left my guitar back home because in a few days when I have a day off work, I'm going to go out in the forest and record some guitar videos. And then I will bring the guitar back with me and start working on a song for the midsummer, when I'm going to make an extended stream and make some kind of performance. And right now it takes until around 9:30 to 10 before it gets darker outside. The eclipse, or not eclipse, the sunset is very slow here up on the mountain. It takes a long time for the sky to transfer or transform. So yeah, around 10 in the evening, and then it gets bright again at 4 in the morning. And yeah, that area of the US is between some of the other states where I know that I have enough followers that it would be useful or of interest to make 1 or 2 concerts. So I'm definitely going to pass by that area sometime in the future when I'm able to do some smaller West Coast tour. Because I have more contacts on the West than East Coast. So it seems more realistic to start there. And to me, and I can't really think of anything, because my main approach with composing a song is that it should feel comfortable to perform it. Like, to me, when I play an instrument, how the chords feel for me and how they are connected to each other just feels natural. So none of them would be complicated, I think. And even though I've played guitar for many years, I'm not a great guitarist. I'm better at composing songs than performing them. So it's a bit complicated to give a good answer to that subject. But I've also made a lot of songs over the years, so to me, anything that's older is hard for me or complicated, because I simply can't remember all of it. Because there is definitely over 100 songs, and I can maybe recall around 40 or so of them. while the rest of them are either forgotten or written down somewhere. But of course, with time, I can't really learn anything. There's about a cup left in the coffee maker, so I'll return to it after some water, and then I'll finish the stream because there is about an hour until I start work, and there is some preparations that I will need to do. Still surprised how it gets so damn warm here. Doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, it sounds similar to how it was here just a few months ago. Which makes sense because that's how the planet is moving out in space, I guess. I like it when it gets dark around 5 too, but of course one of the benefits is that most cameras work better when there is natural light, so it enables me to be a bit more productive. But hopefully someday I will be able to invest in some good lights and set up a proper studio so I can work regardless of what time of the day it is. Although it always feels more interesting to invest in equipment that is music oriented than video or photo oriented, even though I appreciate and enjoy that kind of work too. Hopefully the rest of the days in Australia are interesting or pleasant. It's pretty far away, so I've never been able to go there so far. We'll see what the future has to offer. As for creativity and seasons, I always had a better connection to winter, of course, because it's a very intense season. And I've always had an affinity to it. And being a night person, that's another reason why I like the winter, because you have more night, and also a lot of other people don't like it, so that means that they will keep their distance from you and you will see them less. That's perfect for me too. But for me, nature is very important, and the more I can be out in it, the more material I have for my mind to process. So for me, the autumn is the most intense because I can be out in any weather conditions then without limitations. While there are aspects of summer and spring that I appreciate, and it's of course possible to be out a lot in nature then too. And there's many interesting aspects and interactions of different plants that makes for a very good inspiration. So it's a bit different, also different years on how much I can be immersed into a different season. But also one of my traditions is there are several forests that I visit every season. So for me, returning to those areas and seeing how they interact, and that usually inspires me a lot. As for if I enjoy the ocean, it depends. I prefer lakes. That's just because it's been what I have around me since my youth. But I don't mind the ocean. It's just not the same for me. But usually watching different flowers can be nice, though it's not a priority. And if someone who knows my art tries to approach me of interaction, and then of course it depends on where I am in that day. But I'm always honest about that kind of things. So I don't mind it, and usually I'm up for having a coffee or beer with someone, especially a beer. And as long as the person is polite enough and not rude, and I don't mind it. And also, if they ask me something that I find to be rude or uninteresting, I'm just going to be honest about it. Because there are things that I don't care for and things that I refuse to discuss or talk about. But generally, I try to be easygoing and down to earth as much as possible. Simply because that's what I would prefer someone else to be in return. So I can only do my best to give that back. Otherwise, I couldn't really expect it. As for what recording software I prefer, I'm not sure. I've never really grown to like any of them. Like, to me, any recording software is like a necessary evil that I have to cope with to get ideas out. While there are some that I have no experience with and don't understand, and don't like for that reason. So the past years, I worked mainly with Logic and Reaper. So because it's what I've been used to the past decade, that's going to be my answer as to what I like best, because they make it possible to create what I create. But also the things that I compose rely on the actual instrument and not the software. And then beyond that, a lot of the things that I compose are also composed toward the different effect units that I own. So different reverbs or other things that transform the sound a bit. But that's a big and separate topic that I will try to go a bit more in depth when I make a video that is about the albums that I'm currently working on, or that I've been working on the past year, when I'm trying to explain the process behind those albums and those songs, and going through some of the equipment that I've been using and why I'm using it and how I'm using it. And hopefully that will be interesting to not just the nerds and geeks out there, but some people that are just interested in how to make music more immersive and interesting. And no, I don't like any beer from Denmark, or most things out of that I avoid. But I'm aware of it. There are plenty of other beers that are available in bigger containers that I prefer when I'm in other countries. As to what amps I like, over the years I have a few different ones. I prefer amps by Fender and Orange. They create a kind of depth that I like and appreciate, that works with my music. And as for when it comes to not rehearsing, that's based on different things, because we have members in not just different cities but different countries when it comes to hypothermia. So we do rehearse when we prepare for like a tour, where when we're going to record something, we are rehearsing that material until we know it. But then when we know the songs, we know the songs. And then when it comes to the aspect of something coming together in the moment, none of the songs are the exact length live as they are on the recording, because the different parts depend on what I feel in the moment. And if I find in that day or that moment that one of the parts of a song is more interesting to me, and I have a feeling that I want to explore, then we're going to make one part of a song longer and then another part maybe shorter if I don't feel that that part is interesting enough to repeat for a longer amount of time. Some songs can be inverted like that. That's how I compose most songs, that any part can be performed by itself for a long time, or yeah, most beers is better than that. Getting finished with my coffee here, and I'd probably get sick if I have another cup. And it's about a half hour before I need to get down in the kitchen and prepare for the day. It's going to be a busy one. I've got a nice 13-hour shift ahead of me, so that's going to be interesting. But 13 hours is better than 14. And usually I do 12, so it's not that big difference really. And I should probably have some more water before I get started at work, or I'll be too dehydrated in this weird summer heat. And I'm not sure if it's visible to the rest of you, the scheduled streams that are up that I've made the past 2 days. Because in a few days there is one coming in the evening, and then the week after that I will do both a morning and evening one. While trying to get some new idea subjects to discuss, and of course getting time for some of you to be able to have the time to join me in the chat. It's always nice to see returning viewers, and also nice to see some new ones, as it keeps the conversations evolving and progressing, and also adds both new and different questions, so some things are repeated and some is new. So about audio, hopefully that's just temporary. Yeah, I get sound levels here, so it could be something either connected to the actual connection, as that is a bit lower than usual, but it seems to be working so far, and I haven't gotten any messages or interruptions so far, which is good, because that's something I struggled with the past time. We switched out one of the parts of the routers here to hopefully get a stronger signal, but that kept disconnecting too, so there's not much else we can do about it. There was an electrician here yesterday doing something in the basement, but I'm not sure if that's related to anything of that. But regardless, I finished my coffee for this morning. So a big thanks to all of you who have been present or dropping in and out. Either way is fine. And you are all welcome to the extent that you are able to attend. And thank you, Elvia and stuff. It's very appreciated. And I'm glad to hear that too. I look forward to making some more streams in the not too distant future. And the upcoming weeks beyond the day that I have off work, I work late hours, so I have a bottle of wine for the next after work stream. And hopefully I'll be able to pick up some beers on my day that I have off work for the stream after that. So yeah, thanks again for watching and for answering or for taking the time to give me interesting questions. And sorry if I sometimes feel a bit tired or inspired, but that's because it's in the early morning here and I couldn't really sleep, so I'm a little tired and distracted. Hopefully the next morning coffee stream will be a better one on my behalf. You have all been great. And yeah, see you next time. And take care. And continued good morning, evening, or night for those of you out there in the world. See you next time.